It was a cold, silent night, the city asleep under a haze of streetlights, when Jason, a young software engineer living alone in his dimly lit apartment, decided to order groceries, exhausted from another long day of staring at glowing screens and debugging code, expecting nothing more than a mundane, ordinary delivery. But as the doorbell rang hours later, a strange sense of unease curled through his stomach, prickling his skin with icy fingers. And when he opened the door, he was greeted by a delivery driver whose face was completely hidden beneath the shadow of a hood. His presence unnervingly still, his eyes invisible yet seeming to pierce through Jason's very being. And the bag he handed over was unnaturally heavy, trembling slightly as if it were alive. And when Jason opened it, his heart pounded violently in his chest, for inside were objects he could not explain. A photograph of himself sleeping on the couch, the smile on his face distorted into a grotesque grimace of horror in the printed image. A notebook from his childhood he had thought lost forever, filled with sketches of monsters he had imagined as a child. Yet these sketches were impossibly accurate depictions of scenes from his present life that he had never shown anyone. And a black envelope sealed with an unfamiliar symbol that seemed to pulse faintly under the dim hallway light, as if it were breathing. And inside, a note in jagged, hurried handwriting read, "We are always watching." And Jason laughed nervously at first, trying to dismiss it as some elaborate prank. But the laughter caught in his throat as a chill wind swept through his apartment, extinguishing a single flickering light, and shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, like fingers reaching toward him. And from the corners of the room came whispers, soft and sibilant at first, growing louder with each passing minute, murmuring his name, mocking him, speaking secrets he had never uttered, fears he had buried deep inside, regrets he had hoped to forget. And though he tried to convince himself it was his imagination, the unease only grew, thick and suffocating, pressing down on his chest like a lead weight. And night after night, the deliveries continued, always arriving at exactly 2:13 a.m., each one more terrifyingly personal than the last. A lost ring, his grandfather's watch, photographs of him in places he had never visited, and scraps of paper containing intimate details of his life, thoughts and memories he had never shared. And with each delivery his apartment seemed to twist and change subtly, the walls appearing to breathe, the lights flickering violently, mirrors reflecting distorted images of himself that were not quite human, shadows that slithered across the floor and walls as though they had their own will. And the voices grew louder now, forming coherent sentences, laughing at him, whispering threats, revealing knowledge of things only he knew, the air thick with the metallic tang of fear and cold as pulse, racing every nerve, screaming in terror. Yet he could not resist opening the bags, drawn by a mix of curiosity and dread, each one plunging him deeper into the nightmare that had taken over his life, until the night the mirror arrived, heavy, black and foreboding, smudged with fingerprints that were not his own, reflecting back a hollow, twisted version of himself, with eyes sunken and mouth frozen in a silent scream. Polaroid photos depicting the exact moment of his death, journal entries chronicling every trivial choice he had made in his life, every secret, every regret, annotated with cruel commentary in a handwriting that was both familiar and impossibly alien. And the apartment itself seemed to close in around him, doors refusing to open, windows showing only darkness outside, the shadows stretching and twisting as though alive, whispering and screaming in a cacophony of torment. And Jason ran from room to room, heart hammering, lungs burning, every step echoing like a death knell in the silent apartment. Yet, wherever he went, new deliveries appeared, each containing new horrors, objects impossible, letters detailing memories he had never told anyone, small items from his past appearing in places he could not explain, photographs showing him in acts he had not committed. And always, always the voices, now forming a chorus of malicious laughter, mocking, accusing, promising pain and suffering, a relentless reminder that he was being watched, hunted, tormented. And as he sank to the floor, sobbing, hands clutching his head, he realized that the entity behind this was not some prankster, not a glitch in the system, but something alive, something that fed on fear and despair, something that had always existed in the spaces between his thoughts, growing stronger with every tremor of terror he experienced. And when he opened the final delivery, heavier than all the rest, trembling violently, he found it contained a series of Polaroids showing the exact moment of his death, timestamps glowing ominously in red numbers that counted down with horrifying precision. A black journal detailing every regret, every fear, every sin he had ever committed, annotated in cruel, mocking handwriting that seemed to crawl across the pages. In the apartment grew colder still, shadows stretching impossibly long, corners darkening as if to hide unspeakable horrors just out of sight. And the whispers became screams, shrill and inhuman, echoing through the walls, shaking the floor beneath him. And the void behind the shattered mirror yawned open, pulling at him with invisible hands. And Jason faced himself, a hollow shell, eyes wide with terror, mouth open in a scream that had no sound, feeling every heartbeat stretch into eternity, realizing with good trenching clarity that the entity had always been a reflection of his deepest fears, amplified and made real. And as he screamed in pure, unfiltered terror, the apartment fell silent, the morning sun rising to illuminate a space that now seemed normal again. The door unlocked, the deliveries gone, but a single note lay on the floor, written in the same chilling hand as before, whispering a final, lingering promise that would haunt him forever. Next time, we will deliver you, leaving Jason broken, terrified, and forever marked by a horror that had consumed not just his nights, but his very soul. An eternal reminder that some nightmares are not confined to sleep, and some fears are not merely imagined, but delivered, package by package, into the fragile, beating heart of anyone who dares live alone in the shadows.